Final Destination 3 from 2006 got a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes. But what do I think about it? Hey, what's up, y'all? Back again with another banger. And today, we're going to be continuing the Final Destination franchise with Final Destination 3 from 2006. We're going to be doing a movie review, or here on this channel, as we like to call it, a pickle review. And if you're new here, we've done the first movie and we've done the second movie. And we're going to be going through the whole franchise, and after that, doing some rankings and some tier lists. So if you haven't checked out those first two videos, feel free to do so now. And if you are unfamiliar, there will be spoilers in this video. But this movie is 19 years old. So yeah, let's get on that. It's about time we get on that. Once again, like the rest of this franchise, this movie has the same premise. It starts with a premonition. This time we have Wendy, who is at an amusement park with her friends when she has the premonition of the roller coaster failing and people falling and dying brutally in crazy ways. This time with a little bit of CGI though. And she's able to get off in time, save a few friends until death eventually comes back and kills them one at a time. And yeah, this is continuing the same premise that we've had for the first two movies and that we'll continue to have for the rest of the franchise, I assume. So certainly no complaints on that front. In this premonition here, although it gets a lot of crap for having CGI, for me, it actually isn't that bad. I think they use pretty good CGI and they put effort into these kills and they're not totally ruined. But yeah, this is where the franchise starts to have sillier kills. The kills start to get a little stupid, a little silly. Yeah, I understand that, but in this movie, I do not think they're ruined, and I think there's some good kills. Yeah.
Today, Junior!
Still some good kills here in this movie, even in this premonition. So I think this is the beginning of the end, though, with, adding CGI and there are no more practical effects. Well, not as much as we would like to have like we had in the first and second movie. But this movie isn't ruined by the CGI, at least. And what I find silly about this premonition is just the unrealistic things that occur. It's really not even so much the CGI, but just the choice of actions that do occur with the football player hanging onto the side of the roller coaster, somehow probably having the grippiest forearms. He's hitting forearms every single day. He's got to have the strongest grip in the world because he's holding on to a roller coaster that's going about probably 60 miles per hour, somehow not getting flung off. But yeah, okay, I'm getting picky. So let's move on to the next thing I want to be picky about. So the roller coaster goes upside down and it gets stuck. Well, that is scary, I can't lie, because I used to be scared of that myself. Until you realize it's unrealistic because it's actually impossible because of gravity. So going in with that information, it was a bit silly to have that be kind of a main point in the premonition of how the roller coaster fails in the first place. But if I'm being honest, I'm being picky, and it was still a fun premonition. Those are just the silly parts that I'm going to talk about here. This premonition actually, in my opinion, is one of the stronger ones in the franchise. Maybe will be in the top half of my favorite premonitions of this whole entire franchise. If I'm being honest, I'm ripping on it a little, but I really do enjoy this premonition, and a lot of that is in part that I'm also afraid of roller coasters, just like the first film. We had planes, and I'm scared of airplanes, so that premonition worked for me. And that's the reason this premonition is working here again in the third film. It's because we have another fear of mine, which is roller coasters. And although I'm not as afraid of roller coasters to the extent that I am with airplanes, it still does work and brings a few things that I might be looking for next time I step on a plane. Next time I step on a roller coaster. And honestly, I'm kind of happy they use CGI because it's not as scary with that. It adds a little goofy layer so I don't have to take it too serious. I don't have to check all the screws next time I get on the roller coaster. But, I might still do that though. But the acting here in this movie is pretty good once again. It is better than the second movie in my opinion, and it even competes with the cast and the actors from the first film. not quite on their level. I'd say maybe the leads were better, might even be better than the first movie, but either way, the actors are really good once again. And we even have nice chemistry. I feel the chemistry was shown and very strong, honestly, especially between Wendy and her little sister. They had a scene in there when looking at this bracelet that they seemed to be sharing, but it showed such a connection between them. And it was a lot of chemistry that was going on right there. And it had me intrigued. It had me locked into the movie. So I can definitely get down with that. And there's really only one gripe I have, or major gripe. And it's honestly more of a writing gripe other than an acting gripe. But Jason is kind of a dick and an Elle boyfriend in the Premonition, or really in the real events, because he does this not only in the Premonition but also in the events that follow, where Wendy, his girlfriend, is like, yeah, I'm afraid of planes, like I'm afraid of roller coasters, I got a bad feeling about this. And Jason is just like, yeah, okay. And then calls his boy Kevin over, and he's like, listen, Kevin, my girl Wendy, she's just being a pussy. Will you ride with her on this roller coaster? She's tweaking out. And yeah, just let me ride with your girl or whatever. Like, bro, that's an Elle boyfriend's, Elle man's. Like, come on, Jason, you gotta protect your girl. What are we doing? And for some reason, also, Kevin accepts the fact that they're just gonna, they got their pineapple hats on and they're swinging in a way, really just switching girlfriends for the ride. It's just such a strange thing that happens. And although I know it had to happen for them to be switched around so that Kevin and Wendy could survive the roller coaster, I just feel like there could have been a better way that could have came about. Maybe Kevin could have been the only one that was willing to get off and was willing to believe Wendy. Maybe that could have worked. But the way they went about it, I feel there was a better way. And the way they did it was just straight up kind of weird. So, Elle Jason, you deserve to die in the roller coaster. And once again, we have a humorous tone in this film, like we did in the last movie, different from the original film where we had more of a serious tone. And as you know, I like that serious tone more. But in this film, it worked way better, miles better than the second film did, with the comedic tones that it had. In my opinion, I had more connection. It felt more authentic with me. I don't know, maybe it was the writing or the cast, the actors, but the humorous route that this movie took, I felt was way better than it was in the last movie, and that was something I could definitely enjoy. One connection I really liked was Wendy and Kevin. It kind of felt like Alex and Clear in a way that they were never going to interact. There was no reason for them to interact, but because of this tragedy, because both their Pookies died, and they were really only mutual friends between the two, it was kind of a relationship that would have never started, but because they went through all this tragedy, because they went through everything, they were able to grow a pretty strong relationship and figure this thing out together, which I definitely dug that aspect a lot. One thing this movie does different from the rest of the franchise is the way they go about their second premonition or visions or whatever you want to call it. They, instead of having these images flash into their head like Kimberly, she was seeing the van go into the water and then looking at her hands, the hands that she didn't recognize for some reason, even though they were her own. But, that I digress on that. But instead we used a camera and Wendy was taking pictures. And although it didn't really feel natural, it felt kind of strange that she was taking pictures without really having a backstory, like she wasn't a photographer or a part of the yearbook team. She kind of was just taking pictures, and it was things where, in real life, someone probably wouldn't be taking a picture like a pose here. It was obvious that this was going to be used for something later, and I think it still was able to work because although it felt forced, it was really great when it was actually used later instead of being flashed into the mind. We were able to kind of peel back this mystery along with Wendy to see, okay, how will these clues come into play? How will this next person die? Who is next to die? It was bringing a list just like Flight 180 with the seating chart. This was sort of that for this movie. And I think that was just a super creative way to go about it. And I wish there could have been a little bit of backstory behind why she had the camera, but we didn't really get that. But either way, I did really like these images, and it created a lot of mystery and a lot of really lore that was explored throughout the rest of the movie. So yeah, even though the camera felt forced and it felt obvious that this was going to be used for something, it was definitely cool to see the clue. We knew that there was a clue that was going to come into play into somebody's death, but we had to wait to see how that clue would be incorporated, how Death was going to use that clue. So it was kind of us and Wendy versus Death to see how it would use this clue to kill our characters. And that was definitely super fun. So shout out Wendy for bringing that camera to the amusement park, man. Also, this movie continues the Rube Goldberg effect with the kills, with small mishaps leading to one eventual death. And that is something that was done in the second film. Obviously, it's done in this whole entire franchise. It's kind of what this franchise is known for. But they also added a little bit of twist in the second movie with adding an aspect to where the Rube Goldberg would actually end up pranking us and playing against that, kind of reversing that on us to where we'd expect something and then nothing would happen and then the character would just die abruptly. And that was amazing. And that was also continued in this film with the nail gun kill, which that whole scene is pretty tense, pretty epic. And I was glad that they continued that aspect with also still having the Rube Goldberg kill, as the tanning bed scene is big on that, as we'll talk about soon. The highlight of the Rube Goldberg style kills in this movie is obviously the tanning bed scene. It's one of the most popular and fan favorite kills in the whole entire franchise. And maybe my favorite in this movie, maybe one of my favorites in the whole entire franchise. But it's just amazing. There is no but. This kill has so many things leading up to, and it's just so gruesome, so brutal. And it's really one of the most memorizable and scary scenes in this franchise. And that's crazy because you will never catch me in a tanning bed. I won't be 5 feet within a tanning bed. There's no reason for me to even be in a building that has a tanning bed. I'm not going to be in a tanning bed. I don't know how many times I got to say it. And it's just one of those things that I could never understand. If something's proven bad for you, why are we in it? This has nothing to do with the movie. This is just a real question. Why are we hopping in the tanning bed when we know it's not good for you? That's something I just never understood. So, don't go to the tanning bed. Just go outside. Come on. It never made sense. But I'm sorry. This has nothing to do with the movie. I had to be all parents for a quick second. I love the gym kill. It is pretty dope. And although I do question why they have swords that are sharp enough to cut gym cables just hanging in the gym, in the campus at this college, that never really made sense to me. But although I'll push that to the side because it's a super fun kill, I definitely enjoy it. I also enjoy the drive-through kill. It is pretty sick, and it's kind of the reverse Rube Goldberg effect as we were talking about earlier. With it was leading up for us to believe that our characters were going to get killed, and it was actually the dude in front of them who happened to be next on Death's list. And it was also just a tense scene and just a pretty sick kill overall. So all this whole entire movie really has some nice kills. And although it started to introduce a CGI, I don't think it ruins it. And it's something that I can work with. Although I wish they didn't start using CGI because they got addicted to it and kept using it for the rest of this franchise. And as you'll see, it didn't affect this movie. But, maybe maybe the next movie we'll see it didn't work out so well, as you know if you've seen Final Destination 4. But we'll talk about that next video. One thing that was different about this movie as well was there was no Tony Todd, which was sad because I liked having Tony Todd as kind of the centerpiece or only recurring character in these movies other than Death. And I thought that helped this franchise flow and kind of piece itself together, because without that, they are kind of separate movies with the same premise. And especially in this movie, it kind of feels different. a little bit from the rest of the franchise and kind of has to incorporate its own lore into the movie to kind of make things make sense and add the exposition without having Tony Todd to do it. So, although he doesn't really make sense in the first two movies, I understand after Bloodlines that it does all come together, so I wish that they had him throughout the whole entire franchise, but at least they added some other lore here, and it's not totally ruined. And that lore that they added was Wendy bringing the pictures of disasters. She had Abraham Lincoln with the little smudge mark by where he got shot, and then she has the towers and, Flight 180, bringing those disasters and bringing that lore into this movie to have that exposition. I think it worked in this movie, but I really don't think it was better than having Bloodworth here or Tony Todd, because that's having the pictures of the disasters kind of idea was never explored again. So it just kind of makes this movie feel like it's separate from the rest of the franchise. And that's why I said that earlier, because this lore isn't the same as the Tony Todd lore that we're used to and that we get for the rest of this franchise. So it really does separate this movie and kind of makes it feel a little strange. But one thing I did enjoy was the addition of us, as well as Wendy, finding out that her little sister was actually on the ride and is next on death's list. It created a sense of urgency and kind of created something for us to focus on in that third act, because as you'll see after this, it kind of slows a little down in the third act of this movie, or gets a little confusing with Wendy having her second premonition, which this and the fourth movie are the only movies that have another premonition towards the end. And this one feels a little strange because, so Wendy has her premonition and she goes to get off, but for some reason she doesn't have that sense of urgency to pull people off and say this train is about to crash. Instead, she gets distracted by her sister, stays on the train, and eventually dies. Something that I was confused if she even lived or died until rewatching and honestly doing some research. Got to get on YouTube. Hey, did Wendy die? That's one of the things you got to do. I was a little confused. And from what I understand, she did actually die. The train's coming at her. She's screaming. I'm assuming she died. But I do question why she was able to escape the first premonition, but not the second one. And why, at the end of the movie, when she had her second premonition, why didn't she have that same sense of urgency to get off? Why didn't she grab her sister, pull her off the train, and say, hey, it's about to crash, like we can't be on here, or even scream it or get off? But instead, she hugs her sister and is just like, we'll just see what happens. Like, I don't know. That's a little strange, but it doesn't ruin the movie, and it really doubles down on the fact that you can't escape death. So shout out Tony Todd. He's right even when he's not in the movie. Overall, this is a great movie, and one that I really enjoy, and one that I will probably have in my top half of this franchise, which is a pretty big feat since this is a pretty consistent franchise with only one pooper in it. I give this movie 4 out of 5 pickles, and I would stick my pickle in it. Yes, yes, yes. But hopefully I can use some of that CGI to make it look just a little bigger, please. Let me know what y'all think about this roller coaster death epic banger down in the comments below. Let me know how it ranks in y'all book. Please drop a like and hit that subscribe button, or you will see the screws falling out of your next amusement park ride. Thank y'all so much for watching, and have a blessed day. Peace.